Hello, and welcome to another Mapping It Out Wednesday. This Wednesday, we have Akila with us, and Akila will be discussing bias. I think it's a really important conversation because a lot of assessments, Akila, they there are some biases built in when people do debrief people on their assessments or do have some analyzing, especially, for example, I love DISC, but DISC has a lot of bias and people have a lot of confusion around it. Myers-Briggs as well, Colby as well. So I think this is a really great conversation around bias and assessments and motivational maps.
Thank you, Marie. It's great to be here again. And one of the things I really want to talk about is how our motivations and biases are related. And because they're motivational, they're unconscious biases. Okay. And then how we can look once we know our motivations. And if we want to become more self-aware, we can look at it and then start looking at where these biases are showing up in
Mhm.
ourselves. Yeah, because
I have a question before we jump right in. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people have confusion around, is bias a positive or a negative, or is it a neutral? I would love for you to address that.
That is a wonderful question. I don't see bias as a positive or a negative. I see bias as something, and the way I look at it, is it something that can harm you or the people around you? Or is it something that can help you or the people around you? Yeah. And that's where it's really it impacts us on such subtle levels. Like I love the statement that if you have a brain, you have a bias.
Mm,
You not know it. Because biases are really shortcuts. It's something we have developed over the years from our parents, just the same place we get our motivations. It's the same places we get our biases from. And it's a shortcut to making decisions quickly. Because as you know, our brains are lazy.
mhm.
It is, I take that back. It is not so much lazy as it is trying to conserve energy.
Yeah.
And thinking takes a lot of energy. So our brains create these little shortcuts. If this is happening, this must be true. And it takes maybe 2 or 3 experiences and it builds it into a bias. And the biases can be positive from the sense that it's something that when it, how shall I put this? It's positive from the sense that it makes you want to do something. And it's negative from the sense that it pulls you away from something, even though in either case, you do not understand the underlying and how doing something or getting past that bias could be beneficial to you.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
It does, and really speaks to the fact that bias is a neutral. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's the neutral. And I think that's really helpful for people because I think a lot of people get stuck in the idea of a bias having some negative connotation or it's all a positive, like they get stuck in the good, bad versus it's not good, it's not bad. It's a survival mechanism, as you said, in
It's a
some
bias in
cases.
itself.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The bias of bias.
Yes. Uh, yes. So when we come to biases, it is one of those things that, as I said, we all have them. They show up in our day-to-day lives. They show up at work. They show up within ourselves. And what do you feel is one of your conscious biases?
Hmm, that's one of my conscious biases.
Yeah,
That's a tough
because there's
one.
two types. There's the
Right.
conscious.
There's an unconscious bias and
Yeah.
there's a conscious bias. Um, well, okay, so one of my conscious biases is that um I assume that everyone is intrinsically good.
Hey, now, how does that impact your life?
Um, well, it impacts my life both positively and negatively. Because on the positive side, I walk into every situation
You're frozen.
expecting a good outcome. On the negative side, it makes it colors sometimes how I see people, and I may not see that there is something amiss. Let's just say that.
Yes. And it can lead to disappointment,
Yes.
or it could lead to, like, sometimes those rosy colored glasses causes us to distrust where it may not be warranted.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So, and and those are our conscious biases. The unconscious ones are the ones that truly rule us, because we don't even understand that we are making those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
No. So let's look at it from the point of view of motivational maps. There's the level of the clusters. There's the relationship cluster, the achievement cluster, and the growth cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think, well, what kind of biases can be built into that? Well, let's talk about, we'll start with the growth cluster. The growth cluster people are quick decision makers. They're risk takers. They want to move fast. They want to do good. There's a lot of things that are packed into that, I hate to say it, but to that label, growth cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the reasons I don't like to label things. That's one of my biases. You know? Uh, but if you think about that, for somebody who likes to move fast, one of their unconscious biases is they look for confirmation bias.
Mm.
The things that are resonating with what they're thinking and feeling. Okay. A bias that could be stopping them from doing their due diligence is the fact that they don't want to take the time to look for the what ifs, the opposing, what could go wrong. And if people are telling them that because they're moving fast, they have a bias in thinking, well, you don't understand me, or you don't know what I mean. So they negate that. So one of the outcome of those biases is you perhaps tend not to listen to opposing information because you want to move very fast. You're sure of what you're thinking and doing because you have that level of confidence, and you move on and you make mistakes.
Mm.
Okay. At times, that bias, if you have it and you stop to think about, okay, bring somebody else in who will oppose my idea. You know, have somebody in your meetings, if you have it, who is there to question what everybody else is saying, so you do not become an echo chamber. And if that is happening, then you can move fast, and you can move fast with a level of certainty of what you're doing. But without having that information, yes, you can move fast, but maybe you're moving fast in the wrong direction.
Mm.
And it is going to cost you. Yeah. So it's a simple one, but look at the potential impact that can have. And one of my goals is to help people bring those unconscious bias to their conscious level by knowing their motivations. If you know your motivation, you're one step ahead in getting to know yourself. Did that make sense?
It does. It makes sense. What I was thinking of too is that there's also a bias around if someone does move quickly that they haven't processed
Yes.
the information. Because if you're someone that maybe is on the low risk side of the house or low change side of the house, and you need to take time to really think and process things, there is an assumption that other people need to have that level of time, when there's some of us who are quick processors
Yes.
and they internally process things quickly and then they can move quickly. And so I think it's both sides of that, is that someone who's a quick processor, assuming that other people need to be a quick processor as well. And so there's this bias of, this is how I process, so therefore this is how everyone else should process. And that's not, that can be an untruth, a big
Yes.
untruth. Yeah.
And when we move to the relationship side of the cluster, of course, those things are going to be coming up.
Yeah.
So when we talked about the relationship side now, yes, people, the relationship and the growth clusters tend to have more biases aimed at each other because they're both on opposite ends of the spectrum. Okay, so the people who are the fast movers, risk takers, just assume that, or could assume the bias is that the people on the growth side just, they don't know how to accept opportunities, that they are not ready to move. Sometimes you may even feel that if you are somebody who's highly educated and you're having trouble talking to somebody who is on the wants more information because they need to make a decision slowly, one of the biases might be this person is uneducated, and it's not true.
Right.
And I see that kind of bias playing out in the American public over the last couple of years. You know, because both sides have very, very highly intelligent people. They just don't understand. Their biases are getting in the way of opening a conversation and trying to understand the other side. You know, so this is just touching on the very surface of biases in motivation. But let's say you are someone is on the relationship side. Well, the biases in that area is because they want safety, security, predictability. Their biases tend to be anything that is not within my world, that I grew up in, that is not familiar to me, could potentially be a danger. Okay. And it's not something they consciously think about. It's just their shortcut when they see somebody or see something they have never seen or done before.
So what you're saying is that in that, one of the biases can be, if I have not experienced it, it's not my lived experience, then there's something wrong with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. And that's why we see, and it triggers various emotions in you, fear or whatever. And we see this also playing out in the world, where the more cultures get together and interact, the less bias there is. And sometimes what happens, it's the opposite way. If it is your first interaction with a culture, you create that shortcut. Everybody who is like of this religion or from this country or in this whatever box you put them in is like this.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not true, because people are people. But we have to be aware of that. And we have to be saying, okay, I know I'm going to have a bias about this because of my motivators. So let me come to this with an open mind. It doesn't mean I can't change my mind, but rather than creating that shortcut right away, I'd like to do it consciously.
Yeah, that's a big one, I think, because a lot of times you're absolutely right, but people have an experience with one person or two people of a different culture or religion, or and they immediately subscribe that to all people in that religion or culture. And it's really interesting and fascinating because that's where you hear what turns from a bias to a prejudice,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a slippery slope, right? A bias is not a prejudice. It becomes a prejudice when we perpetuate it. But that's when you hear people saying those absolutes, like all people or none of them, those absolute statements. That's that slippery slope. And it's really, it's easy to fall.
And yes, it is. And we hear it all the time, and we don't recognize where it comes from. Like men are like this, or
Mhm.
women are this, and women shouldn't be doing this. And no, each woman is different.
Yeah.
Each woman is capable of things that you may not be aware of. But and not all men are the same.
Yeah.
So we have to start looking at, okay, where's that coming from? Maybe it's a bias I have. Maybe I should take a step back and look at this person as an individual and get to know them.
Yeah.
And in the workplace, that would make a huge difference. Yeah. And again, this is where motivational maps can be extremely valuable, because if a team has done a motivational map, okay, and we talk about what motivates them, what it is they need to be satisfied and happy and fulfilled in their job. And then we look at the biases that can be preventing that, and bring that out in discussion. And then we look at, well, what is it can we do? Here's a group of 3 or 4 things. That's one of the things that we can do, is come up, well, how do you negate or investigate? It doesn't always have to be negate. How do you investigate this bias? And what could it be telling us about ourselves and our world? And how can we change it if we wanted to? We're not forcing people to do anything. If you don't want to change, nobody, no force in this world is going to make it happen.
Right.
You
Right.
know? So you can look at that from that point of view and imagine having a discussion with a team where they're not knowing about themselves from a place that very few people even think about. Not only are they now knowing their motivators, it is really tying in with their world view.
Yeah.
And we talk about it very briefly when we are debriefing a map, because you know that if somebody's level of what we call intensity is below the 10 line, we say it changes their worldview. But what we're really saying is they have a bias against somebody who's very, very high in that same motivation dimension.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that can come from experience. It can come from, or lack of experience. It can come from just the fear. I mean, there's so many factors.
it can come from your parental or grandparental point of views.
Mm-hmm.
It can come from the news, because you keep hearing stories about one group who is doing good and one group who's doing bad, and you think, oh, those kinds of people are really good, and those kinds of people are really bad. I should fear them.
Yeah.
So it can come from anywhere. It can come from a book. We are not aware of just how much our environment, how much our environment programs us. And if we have a bias looking for confirmation, then the things we read that confirms that bias are the ones that are coming in.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because it also speaks to the importance of uh, giving people the opportunity to have a diverse reading material.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think back to the books I read as a child, and unconsciously they did form a lot of the opinions that I have. They're from the stories I read, those experiences of the books that I have that I still carry inside of me,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes not realize that that's where it comes from. Like, it takes a minute to go, oh, it's because I read Jane Eyre that these are the opinions that I have, or I read 1984, the Slaughterhouse. So it's true that it's not just television, it's also our books. It's all forms of media that can influence our perceptions and our biases.
And surprisingly enough, one of the most powerful influencer is conversations you've overheard that you were not part of.
Tell me more about that.
Well, think about it. You are sitting there reading a book, watching television, and your parents is off to the side and they're talking about something.
Mm-hmm.
And you are tuned in to what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're not part of that conversation. You're not asking them clarifying questions. You're not probing deeper. So whatever they're saying, because they're authority figures, and especially if they're emotional about it, if they are angry or if they are fearful or if they are hopeful, it sinks into your psyche. Because you know something? When we are focused on one thing, what's going on around us can go directly into our subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the subconscious is where motivations and biases reside. Yeah.
So that old adage, you are what you eat, should include you are what you hear.
That's right.
It's not just what you eat, it's what you
It's
hear.
what basically it's you are what you see, feel, and hear
Yeah.
and experience. Those are the four most critical things in your life.
Wow.
And it's one of the biases is somebody who was brought up in, let's say, an abusive family. Okay. Their bias is probably they start with themselves. I'm bad. I'm being punished because I'm bad. It's not true, but that's the message that they are getting. And as they grow up in life, they tend to steer away from relationships because relationships for them is fraught with danger. They don't even know that, but it's determining their behavior. If they meet a certain kind of person, they're mentally equating them to the people who were in conflict and the people who were abusing them mentally, emotionally, physically. And they can cut themselves off from great potential relationships because they have never processed where those biases came from and why.
Yeah.
So it can be really, really powerful.
Yeah. And going back to what I think the theme of what you've said throughout this series is really about the awareness. Having self-awareness it's more than just the beginning step. It's the key to being able to unlock truly who you are and who you want to be as you move in the world.
Yeah. And the more self-aware that you become, it opens up better relationships. It opens up more compassion for who you are. And through that, you stop judging other people. It opens up better communications. It opens up more fulfillment because now you're able to choose what is right for you, not what you think is right for you or what you think is bad for you. And there's a long list of things that being aware can just elevate you emotionally, physically, spiritually. But it has to start somewhere. And for me, Motivational Map is the gateway to that awareness.
Yeah, and because I think the other component to this is that there's no judgment in what motivates you.
No.
It just is. I mean, this is what motivates me. These are the things that I need in order to do whatever it is I need to do. And the fact that it's an ever-changing, growing, and developing state, that what motivated me yesterday is not what's going to necessarily motivate me 6 months from now because of the situation I'm in, my ability to be able to exact change in that situation. So there's, in addition to helping people be self-aware, it's also providing people with tools that really helps you chart your own destiny, so to speak.
Exactly, exactly. And now you know why I love the motivational maps.
Yeah, yeah, I do. So as we kind of conclude this conversation around bias, what are some key things, some key takeaways that you would hope that people would get from this sort of surface? Because you could go so much deeper, I know, in this
We
topic,
didn't, we
but
didn't even touch on the achievement bias. So,
oh, actually, we have some time, so let's talk about achievement really quickly, and then let's circle back with some takeaways from the entire thing.
okay. Well, if you look at the achievement bias, like I said, there's lots going on there. But people with the achievement bias, they're primarily, their primary drives is to get things done.
Hmm.
Okay. And their bias, and you can see it in management or somebody you're working with, is getting things done can override the people concern.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that can cause their bias is let's get this done. It's not let's get this done, but I also have to make sure that the people are doing okay in the journey to getting this done.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's what one of the assessments called high task, low people,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
if you're looking at the relationship cluster, it would be high people, low task.
Yes.
You know? So that it comes in so many different forms.
Mhm.
But I'm saying every one of them, and then if we break down each of the 9 motivators, there are the nuances from that cluster is within the different
Within those,
motivational
yeah.
dimensions.
Yeah, and just to sort of have a bit of a disclaimer, you're not saying that every person that's in those clusters has those biases. What you're saying is that those are some unconscious biases or conscious biases that are sort of generalized to those clusters.
Generalized to the clusters. And even if it was a bias you may have had, as you become self-aware, you've learned to deal with it, so you no
Yeah.
longer have it.
Right.
Okay.
Right, exactly. So you can have someone that is in the high achievement cluster,
Mhm.
but also very much recognizes the importance of connection and bringing people along. They,
Well, again, when we talk about this, you remember motivational maps can come up with over 1.5 million unique combinations. So
yes.
you can have a very high achievement. Let's say you have a director, a high director. Okay.
Mhm.
But you could also have your growth in there and a relationship dimension, which are your top 3. So now you have one from each,
Yes.
and you're going to act
Yeah.
very differently from somebody who's had all 3 in the achievement cluster.
In one cluster. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So knowing all of this now, what are some takeaways that we could kind of give the audience with this overall picture that, and again, just a small slice of the pie that you've presented?
Well, what I want people to take away from this is start to be curious about why you think about what you're thinking. And get a motivational map done if you are someone who wants to become more self-aware. You don't have to do it for your job. You don't have to do it for a group you're in. You can do it for yourself. And for me, the rewards are so tremendous that I can't say it enough. You start to be you. And what could be a greater gift than that?
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's such a beautiful note to end on. Again, thank you so much for this lovely conversation. And if you are interested in getting your own motivational map done, you could win one if you enter into our raffle. You will win a motivational map, a debrief, and a coaching session from Akila herself. And I promise you, it is worth more than its weight in gold in terms of getting that done. So thank you so much. Thank you, Akila. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you, Marie. It's always delightful talking with you, and you ask such insightful questions. And we've worked together on motivational maps, and there's always something new to discover about it, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Thank you so much.